Sometimes sewing machines aren't sewing properly, and especially as a sewing beginner, that can be quite frustrating, which is why I am going to explain to you what you can do if your sewing machine isn't sewing properly. First thing, have you bought good quality thread? If not, the thread can sometimes snap in the middle, and then you end up wondering, why is my thread snapping? And you adjust the tension, thinking, oh, it was the tension, but it wasn't. It was the thread. That sometimes happens with cheap thread, that you then sew too fast and then the machine pulls and then it snaps. Another thing is you need to check that you change your sewing machine needle regularly. That means after nearly every 8 to 10 hours of running. That doesn't mean you need to change it after a day, but if you're continuously sewing 8 hours with that needle, it is time to change it. Another thing, if your needle keeps snapping, that might be that your needle is not thick enough if you are sewing very thick fabric, or also that you need to change your needle if it snaps. If the tension at the top is too high, your top stitch looks like a straight line. You don't see any stitches anymore. And the bottom thread is pulled up a bit. The other way around, if you have the tension at the top too loose, you have a bulk of thread underneath, then you need to turn it a bit higher and it will be okay. And another thing, sometimes the screw at the bottom bobbin loosens. Not every sewing machine has a screw at the bottom bobbin, but some do. Sometimes you can adjust it a tiny bit and screw it a bit closer or a bit looser. You need to screw it a bit closer if on the top your stitches aren't clean and look a bit wobbly. And you need to loosen it if you cannot distinguish the stitches at the top and it looks like a straight line. Another thing I would recommend to every sewing beginner is that you have some swatches of your fashion fabric cut out, and before you start sewing your project, you simply do a test with your swatches to see if the stitches are looking all right, and if not, you adjust your machine. Over time, you don't necessarily need to do it, but at the beginning, I sincerely would recommend doing that. Sometimes, if you're experimenting a bit with your sewing machine, you can turn off the transporter foot in the bottom, and then your fabric isn't transported through anymore. It happened to me in the beginning as well, and I was so confused. Why isn't that working anymore? Then I remembered that I cleaned my sewing machine and actually turned off the transporter foot. If you turn the hand wheel and the needle isn't moving anymore, that means something inside the machine is broken. When I have had my Bernina for a month or two, the transporter belt inside broke and I had to get it repaired by a professional. Since then, it didn't happen to me, but if your sewing machine needle isn't working anymore when you wheel the hand wheel towards you, you need to go to a professional to get it repaired. Then basically one of the most common things as well is that your sewing machine isn't threaded anymore. The thread jumped out somewhere, so that's always also something you should check, that your sewing machine is still threaded correctly. And these are my tips when your sewing machine isn't sewing properly. So first, check the thread, then the needle and the needle size, if it's the correct needle for your project. Then check if your transporter foot is turned on, the tension, and if it's threaded correctly.